Come on, Iforce, you're better than this. Losing speed, 106. Iforce, you're disappointing me.
Welcome back, I'm Alex. We are on the testing ground today with the best-selling mid-sized truck, none other than the 2025 Toyota Tacoma with its brand new engine, and we are going to see how well it handles a load and tows down the highway. Now, we are a little bit late this morning get going for one major reason, and it is because this Tacoma uses a much longer hitch pin than any other truck I've towed with. This right here fits every single truck that I've towed with. Fits on my Class 5 hitch, on my Power Wagon, and well, you would think it would fit on the Toyota Tacoma, but it doesn't. Why Toyota made this hitch like this, I have zero idea. Now, yes, there is supposed to be a Toyota specific pin in the glove box. There is not. Okay, this truck is a rental. It is what it is. It's still very frustrating that I had to go out and buy a specifically long pin just to make this hitch work. Did I want to maybe burn this truck down, potentially hurt some engineers this morning? Maybe a little bit. Under the hood here, Toyota ditched the somewhat gutless 3.5 liter V6, I know, how dare I, and in its place put in a 2.4 liter turbocharged engine. This specific engine in this truck is the non-hybrid version. It is a dual overhead cam, single turbo, direct injection, 4-banger engine, and it's pushing a respectable 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque, which we will be using all of today, baby. Now, in terms of our trailer, our setup has actually changed just slightly. Instead of going with 2 water totes that were half full, I've gone with a single water tote that is fully full. Our trailer weight should be the exact same as when we tow with the Ford Ranger, floating right around 5,000 pounds. I think I will scale this trailer today just to confirm and make sure for future mid-size truck testing. Also have my tongue weight dialed in just over 500 pounds, exactly what we want to see with this trailer. We'll also be towing the exact same 120-mile loop through the Appalachian Mountains with this 5,000 pound trailer, ideally giving these mid-sized trucks a great run for their money. Just like our fuel economy test, we will directly compare this truck to the 2.7 liter EcoBoost in the Ford Ranger, and that engine is a very, very good towing engine. So this 2.4 liter Iforce is certainly going to have its work cut out. And speaking of having your work cut out, that's where today's sponsor, Factor, comes in. For me, when it comes to working long days in the shop, working out, training for half marathon, as well as filming long days like today, sometimes cooking a good, clean, healthy meal at the end of the day can be a mountainous task. Factor gives you the flexibility to stay active without craving junk food. When you're short on time, just 2 minutes in the microwave and you have a nice, healthy meal that helps fuel your routine, whether that's working out, lifting, running, or just getting through your busy day. And now Factor just introduced its healthiest menu yet. They've doubled the size to over 80 rotating weekly meals, 3 times more new dishes than before. You'll see more high-protein meals with beef, turkey, even meatballs, plus myself being out in the Maritimes, double the seafood option at no extra cost. That's a yes. And if you want to swap proteins, you can also do that for free. These meals are built around whole, real ingredients, no refined sugars, no refined seed oils, and you have balanced options like high protein, calorie-wise, as well as even keto meals. I've been using Factor myself, and to be honest, it just takes the guesswork out of eating clean. I use it, and you should too. So head over to factor75.com or click the link down below and use my code GettysFB50 to get 50% off as well as breakfast free for 1 year. That's code GettysFB at factor75.com for 50% off as well as breakfast free for 1 year. Thank you to Factor for sponsoring this video. Up first is our off-the-line acceleration test. We put this truck in 4-wheel drive, go 0 to 50 and time it. It's a great way to see how well this engine's torque is transferred to the wheels to get a load moving. We're in 4-wheel drive tow haul mode. 3, 2, 1, to the floor. $50. Take 2, 3, 2, 1, to the floor. $50. Not that much of a surprise the Ford Ranger came on top over this Tacoma. I find on this acceleration test, torque as well as gear ratio is a very big advantage. This Ford Ranger with 400 pound-feet as well as the more aggressive 373 gears is going to get this load moving much quicker, and well, that is exactly what we saw.
Before we jump on the highway, gotta say, driving around town at slower speeds like these, typically with the turbocharged engines, at least on the full-size trucks, the throttle response is rather lackluster. Not so much on this engine. It feels extremely responsive. You know, you put your foot down and bang, power is right there. And we're not having to bury our RPM needle either, you know, revving to like maybe 3,000 RPM to get this load moving very easily. And it makes some sense because this engine makes its peak torque at like 1,700 RPM. If you look at the actual dyno chart, it makes that peak torque all the way to like 3,500 RPM. So there is plenty of get up and go with this 4-cylinder engine, something I was not expecting. I was thinking that this engine would feel similar to the 2.7 liter Turbo Max that I towed with in the full-size GM trucks. And that engine really felt like the throttle response was not that great. Now, it had no problem getting the load moving. You just need to really get that boost kicking. The other thing about that engine, which I should mention before we hit the highway, is it struggled at highway speeds. It felt very underpowered, if I'm going to be honest. So I am very interested to see how it tows on the highway. Get up to 60, to the floor.
Once again, the Ranger coming on top on this second acceleration test, but I'm not gonna lie, I thought the Tacoma would be much closer to the Ranger here. Typically what I've found is that horsepower plays a big role in this second acceleration for whatever reason, and seeing that the gap in horsepower here is not as big as the gap in torque, I thought maybe this number would close a little bit, but not really the case. The Ford Ranger with that 2.7 is just a very quick accelerating truck, even with a trailer behind it.
As we always do, we got the truck in tow haul mode, cruise control set to 110 kilometers an hour, and we'll just let the truck do its thing. So far, pretty good. We're cruising at like 2,100 RPM. Truck feels pretty solid, if I'm gonna be honest.
There's a couple things that I really want to look out for. Fuel economy with these turbo engines is always a big concern, especially with this trailer.
I can promise you that towing a big trailer with the wind frontage like that, you're not going to be passing many gas stations with this turbo engine.
The 2.7 liter EcoBoost finished with just about 7 miles per gallon. Not that great. So ideally, I'd like to see this 4-banger turbo do a little bit better in terms of fuel economy. Currently, we're sitting at 30 liters per 100 kilometers. Not a great start, but we'll keep an eye on that.
The second thing we always look at is RPM control, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit concerned. Hopefully this engine doesn't have to rev all the way out to like 6,000 RPM. We saw with the 2.7 liter Turbo Max, also a 4-cylinder engine, that's exactly what it did. So hopefully we don't experience that same sort of towing loop. Lastly, since this is a mid-sized truck, I want to make sure that the trailer in that wind frontage isn't pushing this truck around too much. So far, it feels just fine. But I think as these mid-sized trucks grow in size, their towing capacities continually increase, we're going to see more and more people towing larger camper trailers with big wind frontages down the highway with these mid-sized trucks. So it's good to sort of see how they react, and this trailer is a great example of heavy wind frontage. So here's our first hill, currently sitting at, I'm going to call that 4,100 RPM. The 2.7 liter EcoBoost was at 2,900 RPM, so a pretty decent difference in terms of engine speed. But we do have to remember that 2.7 liter is quite a bit more powerful, pushing up to 400 pound-feet of torque. I think this is still very respectable. Hopefully we can maintain this and not have to rev further, because what sort of worries me is despite us making a ton of torque very low in the RPM band, 1700 RPM, we hit our peak torque all the way to 3500 RPM. But after 3500 RPM, our torque band sort of just starts to drop off. So if we do need to reach into those higher RPMs, we're gonna have less torque. Not necessarily where I want to be. Good news is, if you guys can see that, our boost gauge there, looks like we're only pushing about half as much boost as we could, so there is more oomph from that turbo if we need it. I guess we should talk about max towing figures. This truck right here with the TRD Sport, as it is configured with the non-hybrid engine, has a max tow rating of 6,400 pounds, which is pretty respectable, I would say. And you would think, as well as myself, a Tacoma outfitted with the Iforce Max, the hybrid version of this engine, pushing a segment-leading 465 pound-feet of torque, would have a higher towing capacity than the non-hybrid engine, pushing only 315 pound-feet of torque. And you would be very wrong, because the max towing capacity on that Iforce Max engine, doesn't matter which trim, which truck it's in, is only 6,000 pounds, a bit of a head scratcher. Looking at the competition, specifically the Ford Ranger has a max towing capacity of 7,500 pounds. The Colorado Canyon, max towing capacity of 7,700 pounds. Even the rather underpowered Nissan Titan has a max towing capacity of 7,100 pounds. In fact, the Iforce Max engine has a closer max towing capacity to the Honda Ridgeline than any other engine in the segment. So it is odd that Toyota's less powerful non-hybrid 2.4 liter engine actually has a higher towing capacity. But coming back to the big picture here, having a max towing capacity on this specific truck of 6,400 pounds, I think is more than enough in a mid-sized truck. And realistically, if you want to tow more weight than that, you should probably really consider stepping up to a full-size truck, in my opinion. In terms of fuel economy, we're sitting at 30.7 liters per 100 kilometers, roughly 7-8 miles per gallon. Pretty much right on par with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost, which is a little bit disappointing. Granted, we are only about a quarter way into our towing loop, so we'll see where this number lands. I think we'll probably finish right in that same ballpark, 7-8 miles per gallon. Unfortunately, I don't want to get ahead of myself because, again, we're not that far into our towing loop, but you can see on a relatively flat plane, we're sitting at 4,000 RPM. It does seem like this engine is having to rev pretty high, not just on the hills. Again, we got a little bit of a ridge here, sitting at 4,000 RPM. She's certainly having to work for it. And I would not personally call this a steep grade by any means. There we go, an upshift. So even on downhill, flatter grade, we're still revving pretty high in the RPM band, which is a little bit disheartening. Here's our second hill, downshifted into, I believe, 6th gear, maybe 5th gear. Sitting at 4,000 RPM, this is where this engine clearly wants to be. Our boost, we are fully boosted out. Don't know, I mean, we are maintaining speed very well. We're actually at 111 kilometers an hour. But what I was going to say is I don't even know if this engine could downshift again. I assume it could. Good news is we made it to our halfway point. Bad news is we used a lot of fuel, over half a tank. So we're going to have to fill this thing up just to make it back. I can promise you that towing a big trailer with the wind frontage like that, you're not going to be passing many gas stations with this turbo engine. Here you go. 60 bucks to get down there. 60 miles. 60 miles. About $60. Let's throw this thing on the scale and see what kind of weight this trailer actually is. There we go. Let's wheel on the old cat scale, baby. So we got a trailer weight of 4,800 pounds plus our 500-600 pounds of tongue weight. Brings us up to about 5,400 pounds. Perfect. Our tongue weight is right where we want it to be. Very happy with that. In terms of the truck on our first half, I think it did all right. I actually suspected this engine would rev a lot higher than what it did, but we are seeing that even on some flatter stretches, not on those steeper hills, that this engine is having to rev quite a bit higher than what I would like, and certainly has to work quite a bit harder than that Ford Ranger with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. Other than that, this Tacoma feels very planted and is a relatively good towing experience this far. Let's get this truck and trailer back in the wind, fellas. On the backstretch, that's where you have the biggest hills of the towing loop, so we'll see how she does. Here's our third hill, 4,000 RPM, where this engine really likes to sit with this load. Not quite maintaining speed here. Really not maintaining. Our boost, we're at full boost here. I'm gonna put my foot to the floor and see if this engine will actually downshift again. No, it won't. That's all she's got, boys. There's no more gears. So at 4,000 RPM with full boost, this is all she's got, and we're losing speed. Coming onto our biggest hill of the towing loop. Here we go. Downshift, 4,000 RPM, 109 kilometers. 108, losing speed, 107. Come on, Iforce, you're better than this. Losing speed, 106. Iforce, you're disappointing me. Come on. Come on. That's all she's got, fellas. That is all she's got. We are pumping as much boost as we can into this engine. There we go, honey. Bring me the speed. So I think that hill just showed us a lot there. That engine gave everything it had, and we were still losing speed. Something that we didn't see with the EcoBoost. In fact, we didn't even come close to that with the EcoBoost. I know some of you guys will be saying, well, what about that hybrid engine? That hybrid engine has more torque, way more torque than the EcoBoost. I am very interested to see what the Iforce Max hybrid engine has, and hopefully Toyota will supply me with one, because I think that'd be a really cool comparison as well. I have a sneaky suspicion that Iforce Max hybrid is not going to be as powerful as one would think. I'll just leave that at that. You guys guessed it, driveline. We have an 8-speed Aisin transmission behind our 2.4 liter engine, as well as an axle ratio of 3.58. I would say it's pretty middle of the road when it comes to torque generation as well as fuel economy. But looking at our direct comparison today, the Ford Ranger, which has a 10-speed transmission as well as a more aggressive axle ratio of 3.73s, that truck has a pretty clear-cut driveline advantage when it comes to towing. There are also some pretty significant chassis differences between these two trucks. Typically, I'd bring this to the shop, put it up on the hoist, but today we're gonna get right down on the deck here, crawl under there, and I'll show you what I mean. First big difference is that this Tacoma comes with a U-joint coming from the drive shaft into our rear differential. You would think that'd be pretty standard. Not so much. The Ford Ranger does not have a U-joint, rather has a CV joint, which is fine, but when it comes to torque load, I would argue that a U-joint is much stronger. Also, when it comes to having to potentially change this U-joint, it's a $22 part, bang it in, and you're on your way. Where that CV joint in that Ford Ranger, I'm pretty sure the whole drive shaft would have to be replaced. So I really like that Toyota just went with a normal U-joint. Another chassis difference is that this Tacoma comes with coil springs, not leaf springs like that Ford Ranger, and it could be argued that leaf springs are a little bit more advantageous for something like towing, could hold a load a little bit better. So there are certainly some driveline differences as well as some chassis differences, both pros and cons in my opinion when it comes to these two trucks. Oh yeah, the big comments, baby! Let's freaking go! You'll love to see it. Oh, there's two! Double trouble, fellas. Here we come. Double trouble, baby. Rough country. Oh, yes. One thing though, if you are looking to tow a wider trailer, maybe a larger camper trailer, this is an 8-foot wide trailer, and with these mirrors and this truck being a little bit more narrow than a full-size truck to begin with, you cannot see anything behind you. One thing we did notice, however, with the 2.7-liter EcoBoost, especially on the backstretch of this run, is that the engine was getting a little bit hot. The oil temp kept creeping up a little bit, and with this Tacoma, we're seeing none of that. Our oil temps, our transmission temp is pretty much where they always are during normal driving conditions, which I like to see because we were 100% working this engine very hard. And believe it or not, a small engine like this, it actually has an oil cooler on it, and perhaps that's why our oil temp is staying nice and chilly. Here's our fifth and final hill, pushing all that boost in there, just about maxed out our boost gauge. I can't complain about that. This engine's given everything she has down to those wheels, and we are maintaining speed out of a 4-cylinder engine that's realistically not putting out that much power. 278 horsepower, pulling over 5,000 pounds. I mean, I don't think you can expect much more. As we come to the end of our towing loop, we finished with 31.9 liters per 100 kilometers, roughly just over 7 miles per gallon. Slightly better than the 2.7-liter EcoBoost, but as they say, same shit, different pile. Really close in terms of fuel economy. There really wasn't too much of a difference. We got the trailer unhooked and we made her back in one piece. Time for a little bit of a conclusion. I feel like we can't really ask more than what this engine gave us today. I mean, for putting out only 278 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque, pulling over 5,000 pounds with huge wind resistance at highway speeds, going over some pretty big hills, I think the performance of this engine was just fine. Now, if you're looking for a more powerful towing engine in the mid-sized truck segment, and you don't want to go into the hybrid side of things, I think you should probably be looking at the Ford Ranger with the 2.7 or the 2.7-liter Turbo Max in the Colorado or Canyon trucks. I think we saw today, without a doubt, the 2.7-liter EcoBoost was a far superior towing engine. I won't say the engine impressed me, but I thought my towing loop with that big trailer was gonna bury this thing. And she rolled with the punches and, you know, stood her own ground. I think if you have a heaviest trailer or a bigger camping trailer and you're towing that every now and again, this 4-cylinder turbo engine will do it just fine. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. If you did like the video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, do not forget to subscribe. We'd love to have you on board. Anyways, enough of me. We'll see you in the next freaking video.